Hello reviewers, today let us learn about regulation of glycolysis. So the enzyme which regulate glycolysis are hexokinase or glucokinase, phosphofructokinase and pyruvate kinase. So the enzyme, what is enzyme hexokinase and what is enzyme glucokinase? So glucokinase is specific for glucose. It acts on glucose when there is a higher concentration in the systemic circulation, when it is about more than 100 milligram per deciliter, which means it has a high Km value. And hexokinase acts even with the low glucose concentration, and it works on all the cells, which makes all the cells to utilize the glucose even there is a very less glucose concentration. So it has a low Km value and the affinity of the glucose is high for hexokinase. Here in this presence of hexokinase or glucokinase, glucose is phosphorylated to glucose 6-phosphate and ATP become ADP. Then the next step for regulation is phosphofructokinase. Here fructose 6-phosphate is converted into fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So the fructose 6-phosphate is phosphorylated to get fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So phosphofructokinase is the rate limiting enzyme and this step is a committed step, which means for example glucose gives you glucose 6-phosphate and this glucose 6-phosphate can be channeled to various other pathways like HMP pathway, uronic acid pathway or for glycogen synthesis. But this fructose 1,6-bisphosphate is utilized only in glycolysis to get the two molecules of pyruvate kinase. So this is a difference between regulated step and committed step. So how this phosphofructokinase is regulated by the enzyme by the molecule fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. And from where you get fructose 2,6-bisphosphate, this fructose 6-phosphate become fructose 2,6-bisphosphate by the enzyme phosphofructokinase 2. So fructose 6-phosphate become fructose 2,6-bisphosphate by the enzyme phosphofructokinase 2. And this fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is synthesized in well-fed conditions and which is induced by insulin in dephosphorylated state. So phosphofructokinase 2 is active in dephosphorylated state. This fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is an allosteric activator of phosphofructokinase 1 which promote glycolysis. This is how glycolysis is promoted. The another molecule which promotes phosphofructokinase, which is that nothing but the allosteric activator, is adenosine monophosphate. So this is how this phosphofructokinase is stimulated, allosterically activated, and how this allosterically inhibited. Suppose in the presence of starvation or in fasting, what happens? This fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is reconverted to fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is reconverted to fructose 6-phosphate by the enzyme fructose 2,6-bisphosphatase. So this is active in phosphorylated conditions in the presence of hormone glucagon. So the concentration of fructose 2,6-bisphosphate is decreased. So this phosphofructokinase 1 is not activated, its activation is inhibited. So glycolysis is inhibited. This is how the glycolysis is allosterically activated as well as inhibited in the presence of insulin and glucagon by fructose 2,6-bisphosphate, which is synthesized from fructose 6-phosphate. So the third enzyme which is regulate the glycolysis is pyruvate kinase. And this pyruvate kinase also active in dephosphorylated stage, which means insulin promote the action of pyruvate kinase and glucagon decreases the action of pyruvate kinase, which inhibit glycolysis, and insulin promote glycolysis by making this pyruvate kinase in the dephosphorylated stage. So, regulatory enzymes are hexokinase or glucokinase, phosphofructokinase, phosphoenol pyruvate kinase, and the hormones are insulin and glucagon. Hexokinase is an allosteric enzyme which is inhibited by glucose 6-phosphate. Hexokinase is inhibited by glucose 6-phosphate, and insulin increases the activity of hexokinase or glucokinase. The next is phosphofructokinase. It is the rate limiting enzyme as well as committed enzyme, allosterically activated by AMP as well as fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. Fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. Allosterically inhibited by ATP and citrate in TCA cycle. The last enzyme is pyruvate kinase. It is inhibited by ATP and insulin increases its activity and glucagon inhibits the activity. So, this is how glycolysis is regulated by 3 enzyme hexokinase or glucokinase, phosphofructokinase and pyruvate kinase, and by 2 hormones insulin and glucagon. Thank you.